I'm seeing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness this Saturday, and I'm excited to see all the surprises that are in store. When thinking about the film, I began thinking about Wanda and how the loss of her husband, brother, and sons essentially turned her into a villain. Similarly, the Doctor Strange variant, Strange Supreme from Marvel's What If, turned to evil due to the loss of his love Christine. Was there a reality in which Wanda and Strange Supreme could have come out of their grief to become even greater heroes? How can we learn from their mistakes to deal with loss and death better? Let's find out. Welcome to Inner Warrior, where I help pop culture fans with tips and tools to help unleash your inner warrior and achieve your goals. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to join the Inner Warrior community. Let's try to get to 300 subscribers. So, Scarlet Witch's descent into madness started after losing Vision. Between Vision and her brother Pietro, that was already two of the people closest to her being killed. Then, she lost the two sons she created in WandaVision. That is a lot of grief with no support. Similarly, Strange Supreme had to watch Christine die over and over and over again as he tried to prevent her death. He too had no support. According to Chapter 7 of the Resilience Handbook, Approaches to Stress and Trauma, which was published by a member of the Resilience Solutions Group at Arizona State University, and two psychology professors from Arizona State University, there are a few productive strategies to deal with trauma and loss. They found that emotional awareness, where you look within and label your emotions and what you're feeling, is important because then you can understand which emotion regulation strategy to use. Emotion regulation strategies essentially help us self-regulate by pausing between emotions and action. If we get emotionally triggered, we don't act right away. We use a strategy to help us cool down before choosing what action we will take. They also found that emotion regulation strategies should be combined with flexibly and effectively trying to reach immediate hedonistic goals such as reducing sadness, despair, or anxiety, and pursue longer-term instrumental goals such as processing and integration of the trauma and/or loss. Mindfulness-based strategies were seen as helpful in combining immediate "I want pleasure now" hedonistic goals and long-term instrumental "I need to accept the trauma or loss and move on" goal achievements. So, if Scarlet Witch and Strange Supreme would have looked within to understand the emotions they were feeling and used some mindfulness or emotion regulation strategies that helped them feel better now and also helped them accept the deaths of their loved ones, they would have been in a better place. Another great emotion regulation strategy, according to a study by Rice University, the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, and Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas, is cognitive reappraisal. The study states, reappraisal is a cognitive change-based emotion regulation strategy involving thinking differently about the meaning of a stimulus in a way that alters one's initial appraisal. Interventions utilizing reappraisal training may be among the most promising and suitable for coping with death. Reappraisal is one of the most well-studied emotion regulation strategies in healthy adults, and a particularly promising one in the context of bereavement. Research has found training in reappraisal to be effective in reducing distress in healthy adults and across a variety of psychopathologies, including anxiety and depression. Thus, as normal bereavement progresses, one may reappraise by reflecting on the positive experiences and memories associated with the deceased individual. Reappraisal training can be operationalized to teach an individual how to reframe their thinking sooner than they may have on their own, resulting in a more manageable grief trajectory. So, Scarlet Witch and Strange Supreme should have reflected on the positive experiences they had with their loved ones instead of avoiding the acceptance of their death by searching for them in the multiverse or turning back time, both circumstances that cause major issues for everyone around them. In fact, avoidant coping, which is what Wanda and Strange Supreme are doing, was found to lead to negative outcomes in a study by the Henry M. Jackson Foundation for the Advancement of Military Medicine and the Center for the Study of Traumatic Stress, Department of Psychiatry, Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, both in Maryland. The study states, consistent with the existing literature, avoidant coping in particular was a potent contributor to negative outcomes, as well as an inhibitor of post-traumatic growth, suggesting its importance as a target for the therapeutic intervention. These findings are consistent with therapeutic targets described in evidence-based programs and suggest that targeting coping strategies in community support programs or therapeutic interventions can minimize grief severity and promote post-traumatic growth among bereaved military family members. Specifically, efforts to decrease avoidance, accepting the reality of the death, enhancing behavioral and social engagement, and to increase supportive and active coping, seeking and accepting assistance, developing meaningful understanding of the death, should be recommended approaches to enhance survivors' grief adaptation. Meaning Scarlet Witch and Strange Supreme should stop avoiding by trying to bring their dead ones back and instead work towards increasing their support by reaching out to their friends while using emotion regulation strategies to grow past the trauma and loss as well as minimize their grief. Sometimes, loss can cause people to lose their sense of self. Scarlet Witch was no longer an Avenger. She is a wife and a mother, but their deaths left her with no identity. Strange Supreme was a boyfriend and a surgeon, but lost both of those things, which left him wandering with no identity until he ran into the Sorcerer Supreme. A study published in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology found that those with complicated grief, an ongoing and heightened sense of grief that prevents people from healing past their trauma and loss, often had a lack of clarity as to what their goals or personal preferences were. The study states, although Papa and colleagues emphasize the importance of tailoring activities to the individual patient's goals, our study indicates that an additional hurdle for those with complicated grief may be their lack of certainty about what goals they prefer in the first place, due to their relative lack of self-statements concerning personal preferences. One therapy that especially addresses this feature of the problematic grief is complicated grief therapy, which assists patients in brainstorming value-consistent goals following loss. Additionally, our study indicates that one potential inroad to untangling the patient's sense of self from the deceased is by helping the patient to form stronger social connections in the wake of loss. Indeed, other research indicates that higher levels of social support are associated with less severe, complicated grief symptoms. Finally, even though ambivalence about one's identity clearly presents challenges to recovery from loss, meaning-oriented approaches suggest that such ambivalence offers a therapeutic opportunity to revise personal meaning systems and build a new life. Scarlet Witch and Strange Supreme need to brainstorm goals, revise their personal meaning, and find support to build a new life. Who are they without their loved ones? What are their goals? Who can they lean on for support? A mistake both Wanda and Strange Supreme made was cutting themselves off from everyone else after their grief. They were left to ruminate on their losses instead of reaching out to the Avengers or make other friends to support them. Through a combination of Scarlet Witch and Strange Supreme doing some self-reflection, goal brainstorming to find a new meaning in their life to work towards, building social connections with their fellow Avengers and friends, accepting the reality of the deaths of their loved ones, and naming the emotions they were feeling in order to regulate those emotions through processes like cognitive reappraisal, Scarlet Witch and Strange Supreme would grow as people. Their growth could have led them to being great heroes, honoring those they lost, instead of essentially becoming villains in the Multiverse of Madness. Have you seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness yet? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. Also, click here to see how we too can search the multiverse without disastrous effects to find our goal. Or click here to see how we can use real-life science-backed quote-unquote magic to attain our goals.